Time now for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Al, as we've mentioned, many parts of the state feeling some pretty warm temperatures this week. What can we expect in the days ahead?
Well, Troy, it's actually been a very hot week, and we've actually started to see more like summer-like conditions after some of the cool conditions we've seen during the month of May. A lot of wind, a lot of heat early in the week. We started to see the relative humidity levels really increase as we progressed through the week, and of course, some of the storms developed in the midweek period, and we've been periodically dealing with that severe weather since then. And in fact, we looked at the thunderstorms that moved through the state on Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. We had wind gusts that were reported over 80 miles per hour in the Waco area. Some very significant type activity, and more of that's in the forecast, unfortunately. And then another fly in the ointment will be, where does Tropical Storm Cristobal basically make landfall, and what interaction will that have with the frontal boundary expected to come through our region next week? So we're going to go to the upper air models and see just how this may play out. Looking at today's air pattern, we see a big trough in the Pacific Northwest and, of course, a ridge over the center part of the country that was keeping all the warm air in our region. We're going to see some energy eject out of that trough during this next 24-hour period. Looking at thunderstorm development coming out of the Panhandle and moving up into South Dakota. Heavier precipitation on the west side of the Rockies. And then we have Cristobal that's going to start to make its way toward the Gulf States. And as we go into tomorrow, that trough digs a little bit deeper into the central Rockies. We see surface lows developing in eastern portions of Wyoming and western South Dakota. I think we're going to see a widespread convective outbreak across South Dakota, potentially in the northwest and north central Nebraska. Some of that may make it down into the southern part of the state, but more importantly, on Monday, that trough starts to really northern plains. That's going to start to push a cold front through the state. So we have a surface low in the southwestern Kansas that's going to help to feed up a little bit of moisture. We'll see some interaction on that front. But more importantly, the Cristobal will take a lot of that moisture away from this front until we see the front move into eastern Nebraska on Tuesday. And then with Cristobal, the remnants of it starting to move up into portions of Arkansas and the remnant lows associated with the upper air trough over Wisconsin. Pretty wide area of heavy precipitation over Iowa and points to the north. And then we'll see that zonal flow flatten out somewhat as we go into Wednesday, bringing cooler air into our region. More seasonable temperatures return. And we'll see most of the moisture associated with the precipitation from Cristobal move over to the Great Lakes and eastern Corn Belt. Drier weather materializes in our region. And on Thursday, we see another trough approach the Pacific Northwest. That's going to start to push the ridge a little bit higher into the central plains, particularly in the central Rockies. So we're going to start to see a return to warmth, particularly in western Nebraska on Thursday. Maybe a few isolated showers across the southern plains. And then on Friday, that low starts to make its way inland into the Pacific Northwest. We're going to repeat the process we've seen recently, and that is we're going to see warmer air move into our region, with thunderstorm development starting to move into the northern Rockies, and eventually some of that will spill out into the northern plains, particularly as we get into about Tuesday after this Friday. So we look farther into the forecast. The 8-to-date 14 forecast shows from next Thursday to the following Tuesday that the ridge starting to move into our region with above normal temperatures spreading from the western high plains into the eastern high plains. And then we will also see precipitation below normal. But remember, as we get into Monday and Tuesday, we'll start seeing energy ejecting out of this system and most likely start to see precipitation break out in earnest across the northern plains, potentially starting to impact Nebraska also. So Troy, overall, it looks like we have to deal with a little bit of the warmth and stormy weather as we get in through this weekend, particularly in the northern and western part of the state. As we get into early next week, we see that moving into the eastern part of the state. And then we see a drier pattern evolve with cooler temperatures until we get into next weekend, and we repeat this process all over. So very important that the next trough that comes in mid-month does give us some precipitation, because it does look like a much drier pattern will evolve after that.